Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the MIPC 2020 Awards Ceremony. My name is Darius Kudo, and I'm a final year Honors Investment Management student at the Desautels Faculty of Management at McGill University. I'm also one of this year's co-executive directors of the McGill International Portfolio Challenge. Along with co-leading the team with Tanya Kuo, I oversaw the university relations, branding, and technology elements for the challenge. Usually, we host the MIPC in Montreal, Canada. Even though the events McGill University is organizing are virtual, we'd like to begin by quickly acknowledging that McGill and its surrounding areas are located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Gagnon-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is a home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. And so with that, I welcome all of our participants, our finalists, our judges, our sponsors, recruiters, members of the media, and of course, our McGill faculty, staff, and students to the final event of the MIPC 2020. This remarkable event bridges the gaps between academia and the financial industry to change the conversation on pertinent issues with this year being focused around protectionism and resulting social inequalities. We've all heard the presentations from the 5 finalist teams today, and at this ceremony, the winners are of the $50,000 in cash prizes. Just for logistics, we will have introductory remarks by Morty Yalovsky, Dean of the Desautels Faculty of Management, a keynote speech by Stephen McLennan from our presenting partner, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, after which my co-director, Tanya, will MC the awards ceremony. Morty Yalovsky, Professor of Operations Management and Dean of the Desautels Faculty of Management, has been at McGill University for over 50 years. He's held numerous leadership positions at McGill and the Desautels faculty. His dedication and kindness to students, to staff, and to colleagues is reflected in all of his efforts and interactions. He's especially been an ardent believer in the impact of the MIPC from the beginning. It is my pleasure to welcome Dean Morty Yalovsky to give the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Darius, for your kind words. And thank you for coming to us today for the award ceremony for the 4th edition of the McGill International Portfolio Challenge. This event marks the end of a long, lively month of discussions, of activities, including recruitment and mentorship sessions, speaker events, and case competitions. Today, the final round winners will be presented with $50,000 in cash prizes for creating the most innovative solutions that consider both social inequalities and investment returns. The judges reviewed some excellent presentations, each with its own unique and interesting approach to addressing the case. During this most difficult year, we were thrilled to welcome 93 competing teams from 18 different countries. I want to personally thank all of the teams for their hard work in preparing their reports, videos, and presentations. You have made this by far the competition that you have done an excellent job in developing. We'd also like to thank our judges and their colleagues for taking the time to mentor the teams and assess their final proposals. Your support and insight into the challenge truly makes the MIPC the premier buy-side case competition around. I would especially like to thank my colleague, Professor Sebastien Betermier, his senior level class who co-wrote the case, and the undergraduate organizing team, along with Desautels project manager Oma Juba, for making this event finally take place. As we face the pandemic, the organizing team redesigned MIPC from scratch to better leverage our current virtual reality and create inclusive challenges for participants across the globe. I commend you all for your excellent work and making this year's edition a memorable experience amid challenging circumstances. And finally, I extend my gratitude to all our sponsors for your support and for your commitment to addressing societal issues and sharing the future, basically, of performance managers. To mark today's awards ceremonies, we are all excited to have a keynote address by Mr. Stephen McLennan from Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, our presenting partner for MIPC 2020. As Senior Managing Director, Stephen leads the Total Fund Management Department of Ontario Teachers. He joined the organization in 2003 and has held positions in both capital markets and private asset groups. Before joining Ontario Teachers, Stephen spent 3 years with Merrill Lynch investment banking team in Calgary, and prior to that, 2 years with the Canadian operations of Archer Daniel Midland. He is a CFA charter holder and has a Master of Mathematical Finance from the University of Toronto and an MBA from the University of British Columbia. But most important, we are very proud he's also a graduate of the Desautels BCom class of 1995. So it's extra fitting to have him join us in 2020 to mark the special 100th anniversary of our first graduating BCom class. Without any delay, I would like to now introduce Mr. Stephen McLennan to take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Yalovsky, and appreciate the kind remarks. And it is my 25th anniversary. I can't believe how quickly time has flowed by. So 1995, graduated from McGill, very proud of that and still carry that with me to this day. So this is definitely a sort of homecoming, I guess a virtual homecoming. Wish I was there in person. These events are always more enjoyable and engaging when you can be there in person. And so hopefully next year we can, under different circumstances, reconvene in a more traditional manner. I can't imagine how different and perhaps difficult it is to go to class in the age of COVID. Hopefully everyone is adapting and most importantly, keeping safe. I asked the organizers, what would you like me to talk about? And quite honestly, it was a quite wide open set of topics. And so I said, well, what would I have liked to have heard if I was sitting in your shoes? And so I've tried to address my remarks in that manner. So I had to kind of rewind the Back to the Future tapes to think about what the world looked like in 1995. And so I went to a device that didn't exist when I was at school called Wikipedia and typed in 1995. And on the lighter side, Batman Forever was the #1 movie. And for those older folks out there, that was the one with Val Kilmer. So probably the worst one of the bunch. My own favorite movie, it was a little bit darker and hopefully won't belie my personality, but the movie Seven, which was with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman at the time. Away from that, big news of the day was O.J. Simpson, the trial that gripped North America and probably the world. I don't know what that would have looked like in the age of social media, but it was a big deal then, and it still is a big deal now. More closely to home in terms of the finance or investing world, Barings Bank, which was a venerable UK institution, collapsed on the back of a rogue trader in Singapore. And more specific in terms of index and other factual type of numbers, the S&P 500 was at 540. So it's at about 3,500 now. So you might say, hey, look, that's pretty impressive. 7 times your money. That's fantastic, not including dividends and all that fun stuff. But as Albert Einstein said, the 8th wonder of the world is compound interest. And so 7 times your money over 25 years is actually 8% a year. So maybe not quite as sensationalistic as what the headlines would have said, but I do want to just highlight the power of compound interest. Away from that, oil was at about $18 a barrel. It's at about 40 now. Gold was at about $400 an ounce. It's at about 2,000 an ounce. But perhaps most interestingly, when I looked at the financial records, was government yields. So government yields were in Canada at 8%. So think of that. You could buy a risk-free asset and earn 8%. Now that is 0 or close to 0 in North America, negative in Europe, and just goes to show you the world changes a lot. That has immense implications in our view for future returns and is a big change of the general landscape. And there's a lot of reasons for that, inflation and some of those other items. But at the end of the day, that is something that every institutional investor needs to be giving a lot of consideration to. Other things to note, cell phones were just that, a phone. And so the ability to text, smartphones, that did not exist at all. The internet was just coming into kind of mainstream acceptance. And on the technology side, I remember as a student at McGill going to my econometrics class, and in order to get some of those economic computer simulations or computer algorithms run, you had to fill out a little computer code, bring it to the mainframe office. They would only do it at night because all the professors were hogging the mainframe capacity during the day. They would run the regressions overnight. The next day you'd go in, get these big printouts. If there was an error in your code, you had to kind of do it all again the next day. And now I'm pretty sure you could probably do it on a cell phone, all that different work. Other big trend that was different was China was just coming into its own in terms of its transition to much stronger economic growth. So a lot of different things had occurred. One thing that hadn't changed or hasn't changed as I reflected over the last 25 years was large adverse market events. So if you think of the Asian crisis and long-term capital management, which was a big hedge fund that essentially blew up, needed to be rescued by the Federal Reserve. There's a great book that I would almost say is required reading for all students. It was called When Genius Failed by Roger Lowenstein, that profiled that hedge fund's demise. Must read, but a big deal in the late 90s. We had the internet tech bubble in the early 2000s. We had the Lehman Brothers collapse and the corresponding the GFC in 2008, European crisis in the early 2010s, and most recently the COVID pandemic and its related market events. All that's to say is that I'm not the smartest person in the room, and certainly not in this room, but I see a pattern here of every 5 or 6 years, there's something big and bad that generally happens to overall markets. And I think everybody should be taking that into consideration when they think about their own style of investing. Couple of other trends that have come and gone or are still going, I suppose. The rise of hedge funds, the rise of private equity, more recently, the rise of passive investing, ETFs and index-like product are all part and parcel of it. Closer to home, though, the rise of what The Economist magazine called the MAPLE model, which is essentially just shorthand for the Canadian pension model. Ontario teachers and some of the peers on the phone were at the forefront of driving that particular model, but really that goes to something that Canada should be quite proud of and goes to good governance and making sure that you're building overall portfolios in a prudent manner. Also relevant is that Canadian pension plan model for the case study that you folks all did a lot of work in terms of presenting on, in terms of how do you set up a big institutional organization with a variety of different objectives. So before we get into the broader topic on investing in general, I'll digress a little bit and talk a little bit about myself. I know the Dean mentioned my background, but wanted to kind of just spend a little bit of time to put my journey, make it relevant for you all. So always had a strong interest in investing. I bought my first stock when I was 13 or 14 years old. I worked at a stockbroker in high school. A stockbroker is probably something different. Back in the day, you needed to go in person, speak to somebody. There was no online trading, none of that sort of thing. But I always had an interest in the investing world. Having said that, I had no idea how to become a professional investor, no plan. And so after I finished McGill, I went to go work for a large global agribusiness. And that was a great experience in terms of getting exposure to an operating business with financial engineering or financial hedging associated with it. Went back, did my MBA. Then I went to go work in the investment banking space. Investment banking was a great experience, learned a ton, and was really exposed to a lot of different areas and worked really, really hard. I would say that the pay was great. The lifestyle was more challenging. And so on the back of that and some other personal pieces, I ended up going back to school to do my math finance degree at University of Toronto. And that was also a very interesting type of experience. But from there, I then joined teachers And at that point, I was really going through, hey, look, what do I want to be when I grow up? And that really was the clarion call for joining Teachers, and that first link to the more direct investing and being an investor. And so that was a great part of my journey. I've been at Teachers, as was noted, for about 17 years. I've done a number of different things in terms of public market, credit investing, credit trading, running that portfolio. I then transitioned to a role overseeing the commodities and private natural resource team, and then from there transitioned to the infrastructure and natural resource group. So got exposure to that part of the business, and then subsequent to that, have started running, have been leading the total fund management team, which is really focused on the asset mix side of the balance sheet, so the asset side of the balance sheet, as well as the financial liability side of the balance sheet. And so I always say to my team, asset mix is where we want to put the money, and the financial liability side is how we pay for where we want to put that money. But what I would say is that exposure to public markets and private markets has been very helpful in terms of thinking about building a portfolio, and are both key parts of that overall institutional portfolio menu of options, if you will. Teachers has been a great place to work, strong collegial environment, freedom to try new things, get exposed to multiple parts of the business. And so I wanted to use that as a springboard to bring it back to what are some of the characteristics that people might think of that make for, you know, a good investor, or potentially to be a good investor. And at Teachers, we have a couple of different values that we try to encourage or talk about. I'm not going to go through the whole list of them, but maybe I'll touch on a couple of them that are most relevant or resonated the most with me. First off, humility. As I've noted, tons of changes over the last 25 years. Would have been almost impossible to predict all those different trends and market impacts. You need to recognize this, be humble about the world, but also be comfortable with the ambiguity that comes with this changing type of investment world. This goes to being resilient and having conviction in your process. I always talk about process versus outcomes. There are many things that can occur that make markets move in ways that you never thought possible or probable. And so you need to have a process to be able to react to those types of circumstances. Perfect example, the US election from earlier in the week. At the beginning of the week, lots of stimulus was going to be viewed as very favorable for equity markets. Now with the potential for a bit more of a hung up or mixed ability for the president or for the government to be able to enact changes. The narrative in the markets have changed, and now it's positive because there won't be anything to be able to be done over the next couple of years. And so it's just a very difficult thing to predict, even if you knew what the outcomes were going to be. Resilience also goes to flexibility and adaptability. And the way I think about flexibility and adaptability is really around diversity of thought, experience. That can be professional, personal, educational, from a cultural perspective, all really important in contributing to a team environment where you're trying to, at the end of the day, through this process, get to the best answer, build that best portfolio to kind of solve whatever investment challenge that you're currently confronting. Transparency and integrity. It's relevant in all walks of life, but in particular in the investment business, it's paramount. It's a trust business, so you need to treat it as such. Lastly, I would say the ability to take calculated risks. You need to be able to generate differentiated returns, and this means that you do need to take risk, but this links back to that process versus outcome statement I mentioned earlier. So what does this mean for current graduates? I say this to people who ask me what I look for in new hires, and I come back with something that might sound a little bit trite or simplistic, but it comes back to the 4 C's: creativity, curiosity, cleverness, and commitment, which are just shorthand for be smart, so clever, work hard, so have commitment to whatever you're trying to accomplish. And then in terms of creativity and curiosity, you need to be interested in learning new things and trying new things. So looking forward, I would be very comfortable making the bet that the world is going to look a lot more different in 25 years than it does now. And so how might you think about that, or what opportunities and challenges that might that offer to people? I would say the next few years does feel like it's going to be a very low return environment. And so just building a portfolio that's going to be robust across all those different environments is essential. But there is tons of opportunities out there, pace of change in areas that we refer to as ESG, so environmental, social, and governance. That whole area of the investing world has grown exponentially over the last even 6 months. And so there is going to be a ton of opportunities there. I would also say that applying data analytics and some of those other newer technology trends to the investment process is also something that feels very ripe for a lot of innovation. Other more specific comments around sectors or strategies relate to the disruptive areas: clean tech, health tech, fintech, all very exciting. I would say that OTPP has launched several initiatives to explore these opportunity sets. We by no means have the perfect answer, but we're always trying to find ways to kind of utilize these as opportunities. One of them, Koru, which acts as an incubator for internal portfolio companies. Another example would be our Teachers Innovation Platform. They're really focused on investments in late stage growth. So think something like SpaceX. These are really exciting areas that give us great exposure to new trends and very attractive growth opportunities in the investing space. This is obviously in addition to all the more plain vanilla investment strategies and so on and so forth, which will always be in demand, always an important part of an overall portfolio. So in closing, I would encourage everyone at any stage of their career to be open to learning, trying new things, and taking risks. That is truly the key to being able to change in a changing world. And so with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their time. Congratulate the winners in advance. I know you all put in a ton of work and we're very motivated to try to win the day. And hopefully everybody can stay safe in these quite unique and interesting times. Thank you. Back to you, I think, Sebastien.
Actually, back to me, Stephen. Tanya. No
hey,
worries.
Tanya, sorry about that. And my apologies for the sunlight. I had a curtain just fall down.
It did hit you quite well. Yeah, you did have a halo. It was quite impressive. Well, thank you so much, Stefan. This was very insightful, and we really appreciate you coming today. Now, on to the award ceremony. So, as some of you may know, my name is Tanya, and I am co-leading this year's edition of the MIPC along with my colleague Darius. And I know that all of you have been looking forward to this moment, and I am beyond excited to finally begin announcing the $50,000 in cash prizes that will be now awarded to teams that made it to the top 25. Now, along with our top proposals and runner-up prizes worth $40,000 and awarded to finalist teams only, we've also introduced a number of other prizes this year worth $10,000 to award semi-finalist teams in recognition of their outstanding work on various dimensions. Now, those teams really stood out to our judges, and for different reasons. I want to make sure that their achievements are celebrated. And so the first prize of that nature that we will be awarding today is our MIPC Diverse Perspectives Award, an award that rewards diversity of thought, perspectives, and background. And to introduce this award, I will now pass it on to Scott Lawrence, one of our final judges and the head of infrastructure at CPP Investments. CPP Investments is one of our impact sponsors this year and has been a great supporter of our initiative ever since it was created. So Scott, on that note, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Tanya. And it's a real pleasure to be here on a personal level. A fantastic event that I hope more and more people will subscribe to around the world. On behalf of CPP Investments, thanks especially for giving me the opportunity to speak about inclusion and diversity. While I may not look like the poster child for diversity, it's something that's very passionate and near and dear to my heart, which I'll explain about in a minute. The investment world is an increasingly volatile and tricky environment to navigate. Getting investment edge against the backdrop of rapid change and turbulent capital flows while keeping an eye on the long term is incredibly daunting. From pandemia to climate change to tech revolution, income inequality, geopolitical volatility, not knowing who the US president's going to be for a month, these are all things that affect and impact us on a daily basis, but also in the long term. So narrow views, ill-informed theses, following intuition, running with the herd is a recipe to underperform. Leveraging diversity of ideas, looking at issues from a plethora of perspectives is absolutely imperative to win. But simply getting diversity and representation in our organizations is just table stakes. It's just the first step, which is why at CPP Investments, we talk about diversity and inclusion. You have to have the two hand in hand. Diversity without engagement, without giving people a voice, it's totally useless. We've done 3 things at CPP Investments to foster inclusion and diversity. The first is to change our hiring and promotion processes to try and eliminate unconscious bias and improve the raw diversity of our teams on every dimension: gender, nationality, skill set, whatever the dimension. We try to bring as much variety to our teams. The second thing is we've created employee-led community forums and events to celebrate and stimulate discussion for women, for members of the LGBTQ plus community, international groups, mental health proponents, and environmentally minded colleagues all have forums to share and have tough discussions. But most importantly, I think, is our third pillar, which is talking openly and focusing on continual improvement around decision-making processes, because we need to constantly ensure that we're maximizing engagement and debate around all the tough choices that we make every day. And this is the toughest part about diversity and inclusion. You only know if it's working if you have conflict and strife, disagreement, debate, anger, frustration, that not everybody is aligned. If everybody shows up to the meeting and agrees, you've probably missed something. So if it's hard, you know that there's acknowledgement of different viable solutions, and you know that you've respected all the various viewpoints that are around the table. On a personal level, one of my proudest professional accomplishments is between 2009 and 2018, I got a chance to start, build, and execute on a mandate called relationship investing, which is basically private equity for public markets. And from the get-go, I was able, because I started with a blank sheet of paper, to build a team that was 50-50 male-female from the get-go at every level on the team. And on Bay Street, Wall Street, the city, Hong Kong CBD, you name it, that's pretty rare in a private equity context. It's sad that it's rare, but it's rare. And I found that it gave us an incredible competitive advantage when we engaged with the corporates that we were investing in. And when we had our investment decision-making forums, we just had much better conversations and had information from more diverse angles. Over the 9-year period that I was able to head the team, and with a $13 billion portfolio, so not small, we were able to beat the passive public markets by more than 500 basis points. And that was a pretty consistent outperformance that I attribute in a large degree to our diverse approach. So at the end of the day, it's not about where you're from, what you look like, how old you are. It's about making every voice count, because when you get diversity and inclusion to work, results follow, and that's worth celebrating. And so because of that, we're going to celebrate it here today, and I'll pass it back to you, Tanya, to announce the winner.
Thank you so much, Scott. And so now, without further ado, the moment that you have all been waiting for. This year's winner of the MIPC Diverse Perspective Awards is, drumroll, Team WACC from Aarhus University. Congratulations, Team WACC. All right, perfect. And now our next award on the list today is the Exceptional Quantitative Analysis Award. Now, this prize rewards a team whose proposal was exceptionally rigorous and robust in terms of its quantitative analysis. And so the award goes to Team Love and Peace from Stony Brook University. Congratulations, Team Love and Peace. All right. Now, next up, our Exceptional Storytelling Prize. Now, this prize is awarded to a team that carried out their presentation exceptionally well and really managed to captivate the judges. And so without further ado, the Exceptional Storytelling Award goes to Team Mons Olympus Capital from the University of Sydney. Congratulations, Team Mons Olympus Capital. All right, and last but not least in our list of semifinal prizes, the Exceptional Creativity Prize. Now, this prize is awarded to a team that presented a solution that was really outside of the box, a team that brought a truly unique perspective to the table. And so the team that will receive our Exceptional Creativity Prize this year is Team Jampack Consulting from the Asian Institute of Management. Congratulations, Team Jampack Consulting. All right. And so now before we move on, I just want to say once again, congratulations to all of our semi-finalist teams. You all went above and beyond, and the quality of your proposals was absolutely phenomenal. And now for the award that all of you have been waiting for, the Top Proposals Prize. Now this year, as I've explained previously, our prize structure is slightly different. Indeed, in an effort to foster collaboration instead of encouraging competition, we decided to move away from a traditional 1 through 3 prize structure and create a $30,000 cash prize that can be shared by up to 3 teams. Should only one team be awarded the prize, it will receive $25,000. The remaining $10,000 or $15,000 will be split evenly among the runner-up teams. And now, to announce the Top Proposals Prize, it is my pleasure to welcome to the virtual stage Steve Saldana, one of our final judges and the Managing Director of Total Fund Management for Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, our presenting partner for this year's edition of MIPC. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanya, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I have the great honor of announcing the winning proposal, and let me tell you, it was no easy task choosing the winner. The quality of work was off the charts. For what was a very, very challenging topic. And what makes me most nervous, to be honest, is that you just heard remarks from Stephen McLennan, who happens to be my boss. And I know he's sitting there and he's going to ask me why the quality of my work is not nearly as good as what we saw today. So I'll have to come up with an answer. So kudos to everyone. But unfortunately, everyone can't win. But as Tanya said, there's some flexibility. And in fact, today, we're going to announce 2 winning teams sharing the top prize. Now, before I announce it, just to keep you waiting just a little bit more, I just want to talk about what separated these 2 teams from the rest. First, they both had a thorough and complete combination of top-down and bottom-up analysis that led to what we felt was a clear and implementable asset allocation based on reasonable assumptions. So for those reasons, the following 2 teams were judged to be the top. First, not first, but the 2 winners are Team ISOS Capital from Nanyang Technological University of Singapore and Team Control Alt Elite, a very interesting name, from Bocconi University in Italy. So congratulations to both.
Thank you, Steve. And again, congratulations to Team ISOS Capital and Control Alt Elite. Now, this means that the runner-up prizes will be worth $10,000 and shared by 3 teams. And now to announce the runner-up prize, I would like to welcome to the virtual stage Bernard Augustin, also one of our final judges and the Director of Quantitative Research, Multi-Asset and Currency Management at CIBC. Bernard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanya, and good afternoon all. It is my pleasure to present the CIBC Asset Management Run-Up Prize in this, the 4th edition of the McGill International Portfolio Challenge. The record number of enrollments and the quality of the proposal received is a reflection of the uniqueness of the experience provided by the challenge. MIPC is an enriching experience for both participants and judges alike. It provides a showcase for talent, and more importantly, it promotes creative and pragmatic thinking to real problems. This year's finalists crafted thoughtful proposals, and as mentioned by Steve, it was difficult to actually determine who the winners are. As such, it is my privilege to present the CIBC Asset Management Run-Up Prize to ICE Capital, MMCJ Investments, and Red Rose Advisors. Congratulations for a job well done.
Congratulations, teams. ICE Capital, MMCJ Investments, and Red Roses. Congratulations to you. And now, for our last awards of today, the Best Speaker Awards, I'd like to pass it off to Professor Sebastien Betermier, the Academic Director of the MIPC.
Thank you so much, Tanya. In addition to our team prizes, judges yesterday at the semifinals selected one exceptional individual who presented and responded to questions exceptionally well. So we have 5 Best Speaker Awards worth $500 each. And each of these awards is coming from one particular pool from the Thursday. And now it is my great pleasure to announce the 5 Best Speaker Awards of the MIPC 2020. The winners are Jeffrey Brown, Olympus Mons Capital, University of Sydney, Alex Clayton, Phil's Capital Management from Wilfrid Laurier University, Liting Chiang from Team Love and Peace from Stony Brook University, Meher Sani from Team Mindset Consulting from George Washington University, and Grace Shi from Team SAG from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. To those 5 of you, I want to congratulate you for a job exceptionally well done. This concludes our award ceremony. We're now drawing close to an end. Before we go, I want to tell you a couple of steps that we're currently taking at the MIPC moving forward. For the first time this year, we have organized an MIPC speaker series. These were leaders from the field who shared with you some of their insights on themes related to the current case. In the coming weeks, we will post some of these webinars online so that they can be accessible to all of you. We're also working hard to make our current and past MIPC cases accessible to a broader community. These are important topics that you've been working on that can be addressed moving forward in the classroom and beyond. And so what we are doing is creating digital versions of our cases that you are welcome to use in your courses moving forward. They will be free to run, to use, free to read. They will be experiential when you will go through the cases, almost like reading a newspaper online. And so stay tuned. In the next few months, we will announce the first of these digital versions of our MIPC cases. Finally, my colleague, Omer Juna, and I would like to take a minute. It is fair to take at least 1 minute for this to recognize the hard work of our student organization team. Every year, we recruit a new student team to organize the competition. The team is chosen from quite a large pool of applicants in January. We specifically look for students, like Stephen was saying, that meet the 4 Cs, who can take initiatives, who can work as a team, who can build a project, and perhaps most importantly, who do not take no for an answer. Now, this year, the team has been put to a real test. In April, we realized that running the MIPC in the traditional format would be difficult and risky because of the pandemic. However, instead of canceling or postponing the competition, the team took the time to completely rethink the design of the challenge and adapt it to a virtual format. They found silver linings and ways to improve the competition that we did not see before. They worked nonstop, and I can say nonstop. They took risks. They experimented with multiple IT platforms. They did numerous hours of testing to make sure that everything would go according to plan. And so I cannot emphasize how grateful I am for their work, and I want to say a real thank you. I want to give a special thanks to Darius Kudo. Darius is the co-executive director of MIPC 2020. You haven't seen much Darius on the screen these days, and there's a simple reason for this. Darius has been responsible for running all of our IT behind the scenes. We do not work with a media agency, we work with Darius. He has done a phenomenal job. We would not be here today without him. Darius is currently pursuing a Bachelor of Commerce at McGill with honors in investment management. And I think now, because we're drawing close to the end, I think it's safe now, Darius, for you to come from behind the curtains and give the concluding remarks to this year's competition.
Thanks, Professor Betermier, for the very, very kind words. I just want to recognize the incredible support and trust that we have from not only our own faculty at McGill, but particularly our industry sponsors and our university participants. This year has certainly been very challenging for everyone. I can speak to the extensive ambiguity that we faced back in March. In-person format, we were looking forward to eating dinner at the Ritz-Carlton on the day of the finals. Obviously, that was no longer possible, and we were faced with very big choices very early on. But given this year's theme on protectionism and inequalities, we saw that pausing the challenge was not a good option for us. We instead saw this whole situation as an excellent opportunity to build upon the MIPC. So obviously, we had no basis to go off of in the very beginning. and our team decided to redesign the MIPC. So very early on, we conducted interviews with key stakeholders to learn about their specific needs, and we adapted MIPC to suit those needs by leveraging technology very heavily and providing the best experience for everyone. Whenever we faced a problem or concern, we really wanted to focus on the experience of our student participants and our sponsors. As in, we asked ourselves, what is it that they want from the challenge? This human or user-centered approach allowed us to overcome significant obstacles with ease and led to, I think, very remarkable results. The virtual format obviously made MIPC more financially inclusive and geographically accessible. As we said towards the beginning, we received a record number of teams despite the whole pandemic, a total of 93 teams from 56 universities and 18 countries, our most diverse set of teams that we've ever had. Additionally, most of our sponsors returned this year, and we were able to sign several new ones despite the very challenging economic situation. And so to all our sponsors, we thank you for your trust and your support. All of this couldn't have been possible without the dedication and the creativity of the rest of the MIPC organizing team, which I'd like to take a second to recognize now. So Grace, Rinda, Deborah, Oriane, Melis, Farhat, and of course, my co-executive director, Tanya. It was a very big pleasure to work with all of you over the last 9 months, planning out this version of the MIPC. And it was especially an honor to work under the guidance of faculty program manager Omar Juma, and of course, Professor Sebastien Betermier. So thank you to all of you for your contributions. I just want to leave with a couple of points for students and young professionals. I really want to emphasize the importance of cultivating your passions and getting involved in extracurricular activities outside of school, such as the MIPC. Me personally, I've always been very passionate about branding, about designing, about anything related to technical skills. And this year with the pandemic and transitioning to the virtual format, this is obviously a very good opportunity to channel those skills towards my own professional goals. It was very much the right place, right time moment. So to all your students, cultivate your hobbies and skills, and soon you will have the right opportunity to apply them. Moreover, getting involved in organizing such challenges allows you to think beyond the theoretical knowledge you gain in a classroom setting. In your own way, you get to participate in real conversations. In the past 2 years that I've been with the MIPC, I've experienced very significant professional and personal development, all the while getting to focus on the real problem and shaping the conversation. And so with that, I'd like to conclude. On behalf of the entire MIPC team and the Desautels Faculty of Management at McGill University, thank you everyone for joining us today and throughout the challenge. We hope to keep you engaged by publishing a lot of the content that we were able to develop in a virtual format, and we look forward to seeing you at the next year's MIPC. Thank you. See you later.